What's up, Raider Nation? Jahan and Rashawn back with another episode. Unfortunately, we can finally say our season is officially over after a very disappointing loss to the Indianapolis Colts. We got a lot to get into. I mean, a ton to get into, but I think first we got to start with the offense. Another very disappointing performance from them. They came out flat, stagnant. Um, More proof that Aiden O'Connell is just not the guy. Um, he can't get it done. You need a mobile quarterback in today's NFL, or at least someone who can navigate the pocket, which Aiden O'Connell clearly cannot do. And also, the play calling was completely atrocious. There were multiple times on 3rd and 1 where we throw these play action bombs, trick plays when we're right in the fringe of field goal range. And we ended up losing by 3, and we had about 3 of those instances where we cost ourselves 9 points by messing those key situational football moments up. So we got to be better coaching, offense, and the defense. It's hard to blame them. They're playing aggressive all game. They couldn't really give up much. So when you give up a few big plays, it's hard to blame the defense.
Yeah, I mean, I think just extremely disappointing to lose like that. Um, Gardner Minshew didn't play great, and the Colts in general just played pretty mediocre football. I think we could have beat them. We had that game in the bag. I think most of the way, like you said, those few 3rd and 1 situations just continues to show Bo Hardegree is really not the guy for the job. I just don't. I really don't see him, being the offensive coordinator in the future. And I don't think anyone does really, but I still think Antonio Pierce gets the job here. I still think I mean, Tay was very vocal about it today. That he knows Antonio is the guy for the job. But like defensive side of the football, you got to keep Patrick Graham. I think defense, made their stops when it mattered. It's just the offense just can't get going. This Aiden O'Connell is like a Statue of Liberty for one, and you can't run the ball every play. You got to be able to move the ball through the air, and we just couldn't get it done. Yeah, Devonta had 13 receptions for around 120 yards or something, but that's not going to get it done. Just going to one guy every single play. They got to spread the offense around, and they got to look. They got to look downfield. And O'Connell has an arm; he can get downfield, but he just can't extend plays. Is his problem? Is there was one play we were at I think we were at like the 32-yard line, and it was like 3rd and 6, and he got sacked for like a 10-yard loss, and we had to punt. And then in addition to that, Aiden O'Connell, okay, but Antonio Pierce there, like they punted the ball on 4th and 2 a couple times from midfield, which really just, I mean, they were just playing really conservative. I think with like 7 minutes left in the game, they were down by 10, and they had 4th and 2 around like the 45-yard line, and they just decided to punt the ball. And
Yeah.
luckily, we have one of the best punters in the business who's able to get us, down, inside the 10 and give the defense a chance. But yeah, just bunch of mistakes and continues to show, I mean, who's going to stay and who's going to go.
Yeah. And that point you made about the punting, if you're going to throw on 3rd and 1, 3rd and 2, why are you punting? Like if you're throwing, that's an aggressive mindset. So why would you punt? You should go for it. If you're giving yourself an aggressive chance on 3rd down, you might as well try to go for it if you're going to waste that down on a risky pass. So I didn't understand those instances. Pretty baffling. But at the end of the day, it wouldn't have mattered, I think, even if we had won that game, because all the games that we needed to go our way for the playoffs did not go our way, with the Steelers winning and the Texans winning. So I think we would have missed the playoffs regardless, even if we won both this game and the Denver game. So look, it sucks. We're not going to be playoff bound, but um, we're not a playoff team. Our offense, we couldn't have competed in the playoffs. You got to be better as an offense, and our defense is playoff caliber, but our offense is a long way away from there. Um, Next thing I wanted to go into is I don't know if you watch any of the college football bowl games, but Michael Penix put on a complete show against Texas, and I think we're going to have around the 10th or 11th overall pick, and I think Michael Penix is going to be on the board. I wouldn't hesitate to draft him. I think there's 5 quarterbacks who I would be comfortable
Mm-hmm.
as our quarterback next year. It would be obviously Caleb, Drake May, Jaden Daniels,
Yeah, Jaden
Michael
Daniels.
Penix. and Justin Fields. I think if you don't get one of those five quarterbacks
Yeah.
in the offseason, it's a complete failure.
Complete failure. I know Wi-Fi Willie, I've been liking his videos as of late, but I just saw his video today and it was 10 reasons why Raiders should get Russell Wilson. Okay, that's the biggest disaster that could ever happen to this franchise. And Mark Davis is not dumb. I mean, he knows that. That's one thing that's not going to happen for sure. But like you said, one of those other four guys, that would be ideal. I think the four that you said, the rookies, I think those four, if we have a top 10 pick or a top 12 pick, I think you get one of those guys, just given how many teams actually have a quarterback and are comfortable in the quarterback position. But I really don't know if Justin Fields is that guy. I mean, we'll see how he plays. Week 18 against Green Bay. Green Bay, if they win, they're in. They make the playoffs. I'm pretty sure that's how it is. Um, but yeah, I mean, one of those five guys, and I read Mitchell Wren's video today was, oh, what if Raiders trade up for number one? And I'm like, what? I'm like, Raiders trade up for number one? I'm like, maybe. I thought about it and I'm like, why not get Caleb? But I honestly don't, me being a USC student and being, avid football, USC football, guy, like, I don't think that Caleb Williams is really all that. I don't think he's going to be good in the NFL, especially right off the bat. I think what we need more is right off the bat for him to be good, because we're like not in a rebuild. Devontae's staying. We got our defense is playing at a all-star level. And I think that we need a quarterback that can come right in and, pick it up. And I think Jaden Daniels is more of that guy. He just won the Heisman, just had his best season ever. And I honestly don't know.
Yeah. Yeah, and he obviously has a connection to Antonio Pierce, so I don't know if he goes before our pick. I think we have 10 or 11th overall pick. I think he goes before then. So we're probably gonna have to trade up if we want Jaden Daniels. Um, and another thing I wanted to hit is I've seen a lot of these content creators say after we beat the Chiefs, they're like Antonio Pierce is the guy. And after this loss to the Indianapolis Colts, they're like Jim Harbaugh this, Jim Harbaugh that. So it's pretty annoying to see all the hypocrisy within the nation of do we keep Antonio Pierce or do we not? And this is what we're gonna say on it. I think it's a win-win. You keep Antonio Pierce, it's a win. The media's with you. Obviously, the team likes him. The team's playing for him, and we've shown that we can win games under him. We can beat the Kansas City Chiefs under Antonio Pierce, which we haven't been able to do. And I think with a full off season of preparation, I think Antonio Pierce, we would be a playoff team under him. But the other alternative, as a lot of people have been floating out there, is Jim Harbaugh, which I feel if we either had one of those two guys, Antonio Pierce or Jim Harbaugh, as head coach, it's a win for us. I think any other head coach, you can't go and hire someone else other than those two guys. Jim Harbaugh, and we've mentioned this numerous times, he was a Raider in 2002, worked directly under Al Davis as quarterbacks coach, and I think he's a star. Mark Davis constantly wants stars, and Jim Harbaugh's won every single place he's been. And he's a Raider. I was doing some research and I found this little snippet. Um, I think it was in 1992. We were trying to find a veteran quarterback, and the two options that we had were Jim Harbaugh and Jeff Hostetler. And we ended up signing Hostetler, but when Harbaugh worked out with us, Al Davis talked to him, and Harbaugh said, "You'll be a Raider someday. You'll be a Raider." And obviously, he was a Raider as our quarterbacks coach, but I think it'd be amazing if Jim Harbaugh were to come, but that doesn't mean Antonio Pierce wouldn't be a good option. So you can't go wrong either way. Um, we got two solid options there, but I wouldn't hire anyone else other than those two guys.
Yeah, and I mean that Bonsignori put the report out yesterday that Harbaugh is super interested in the Raiders job. This is the third time that we've been looking for a new head coach, and they in the last decade that they have looked at Jim Harbaugh, and I think looking in 2015 and when they hired Del Rio, they were looking at Jim Harbaugh. Then in 2022 or in 20, yeah, after the Gruden and Bisaccia thing, they were looking at Jim Harbaugh. Then now again, they've been looking, towards Jim Harbaugh. And I think if Mark Davis really wants Jim Harbaugh, he's going to pull the plug. And I think he's gonna get Jim Harbaugh if he really wants him. but I don't know if that's the right move because obviously all the players definitely want to play for AP, and we've said this numerous times. You know, everyone wants to play for AP, and yeah, I mean, I think just it really just depends if he wants to go for a win now approach or maybe test out the waters. Because if AP's a coach, he's gonna have to learn a lot as he goes. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I would agree there, but I think AP is the win now coach because Harbaugh's going to want his own guys, and it might be more of a rebuild than if Antonio Pierce was named head coach. Um, like you see these CEO type head coaches, they want their own guys. It's happened under Gruden, it happened under McDaniels. So we're going to see, and I don't know what GM we bring in with Harbaugh. Obviously, if we had AP, it's going to be Champ Kelly, but I don't know if Harbaugh signs off on Champ Kelly being the GM. And I don't know, it might be more of a rebuild with Harbaugh in there. So I think with Harbaugh, you're built for long-term success, but with Antonio Pierce, you have the right coordinator in Patrick Graham. Obviously, you got to hire an OC, but I think like you can't go wrong either way. I don't know. I'm not in the building. None of us are in the building. We don't truly know how it is with Antonio Pierce. We don't know Mark Davis's view on Antonio Pierce. So it's up to him. And I think those two options are the best. But yeah.
Yeah, and I think now I mean, Antonio Pierce or Jim Harbaugh, that's really looking like the two most realistic options for us. Um, Quarterback is looking like you said, one of those five guys, one of those five names is important. Um, but kind of like getting aside from everything, let's look at the rest of the season. Like let's look at how the rest of the season is going to play out because I mean, yeah, for us our season's over. I mean, we should have won 3 games, three games more than what we are right now. I mean, we should have beat Pittsburgh, we should have beat Minnesota, and we should have won that game on Sunday. Those are 3 games that, even if you had 2 of them more, you're sitting at 9 wins and you were in a good position to win against Denver on Sunday and get to 10-7. You know what I mean?
Mhm.
Like just came up short against Minnesota and against Pittsburgh too, just wrong play calling, kicking that field goal when you needed to go for it on 4th and 1, and then going for it when you needed to kick the field goal. Like just Josh McDaniels, obviously. And another game was the Detroit game. That game we had. I mean, that one play we were on our own 10 and it was like 3rd and 2 and Jimmy threw a quick slant to Devontae and Devontae dropped it. I mean, that was the game right there. We had all the momentum. We were winning at that point. It was like 14-10 or something. And it was like the last 2 minutes of the half, and they got the ball back and they marched down and scored. And they were winning half. We didn't score the rest of the game. I think we
Yeah.
lost like it was like 30-14 or something.
Yeah.
And just some unfortunate things. And it's just such an unfortunate, season for us this year overall. But yeah, I mean 2024, it's like new year now and we'll be coming out with a shit ton of videos this off season. Like, when we get a new coach and when we hire staff and when we, if AP is a guy, let's see who he brings in. And then free agency, and then we got the draft coming up in April, which it's gonna be here in a blink of an eye. I mean, it's only 3 months away. You know what I mean? Like it's gonna come up really fast, like it always does. I mean, like one thing about you'll learn is that you're just now getting into college and the spring just always flies by in college. Like the next quarter for you is going to just fly by. Like, and for me, the semester is it's my last semester of college. I'm graduating in May and it's just going to fly by. So before we know it, we'll be picking, and with hopefully within the top 10. But I do hope we beat Denver. I'm not going to say that, I want us to lose to get a better pick. I want to beat Denver. Like I don't think it really matters that much if we have the 13th pick or if we have the 11th pick. I really don't think it matters. Plus, you have that option to trade up. Like
Yeah.
if they really have a guy they got their eye on, like if they really think that Jaden Daniels or Drake May is the guy, they'll trade up and get him. You know what I mean? Like
Yeah.
I don't think Chicago's going to get rid of the number 1 pick because they might get rid of Justin Fields, and apparently, according to Mitchell Wren's third and a fifth rounder is what they're looking for Justin Fields if they were to trade up and draft Caleb. But it's funny because my dad was at this lounge in downtown LA on New Year's Eve, and Caleb Williams was there. And Caleb Williams showed up, and my dad was talking to him, and he's like, "Oh, and your uncle was there too, Vic. Our uncle was there too.
Yeah.
Vic was there, and he was like, they were saying, oh, like don't go to Chicago. And the guy was like, nah, nah. He's like, I don't know yet. And people were asking where he's gonna go, and he goes, I don't know who's gonna draft me. And he hopes not to go to Chicago. You know, I think, and he was saying that he told them that he's a Raiders fan. He likes the Raiders. You know, he would like to play in Vegas. So that's why that report came out today. It was like, oh, like what if Mitchell Renz was like, what if we trade up to number one? And I could see it happening. I mean, no doubt, I could see it happening.
I could see us wanting to do that, but I don't know if Chicago wants to do that. To give up, especially to go from 1 to like 12 or 13. It doesn't make too much sense on their end if they think Caleb is the guy. And I don't see why they wouldn't think that. Obviously, they haven't been winning with Justin Fields, so I think it might be time for a change with them at quarterback. So, look, they're going to pick one. I think they're going to pick a quarterback, whether it's him or Drake May. The quarterback's going to be gone at number one. So, just like you said, it depends on what QB we want. And obviously, we want to keep the streak alive against Denver. I don't want to lose that. I think it's been 7 games we beat them in a row.
Yeah, seven. It'll be 8 years. Yeah, I mean, it'll be 4 years straight beating Denver if we win. If we
Yeah,
win on, you know, and we beat Jared Stidham would be even better. You know what I mean? Like just beating that guy at home, beating Denver, making sure, you know, they only win 8 games and we'll win 8 games too, and then we'll finish at least second in the division. You know what I mean? Like I don't think it matters that much, but obviously for us as diehard fans, I think it really does matter. You know what I mean? Like we don't want us to lose, and especially to Denver. You don't want to lose to Denver. So if it means like we get a worse draft pick, I really don't care. I just want to beat Denver. That's really all I want to do at this point in the year.
yeah.
But like let's look at the playoff picture because there's some interesting things um that are gonna come up, and I'll pull up the playoff picture right now.
Another thing too is Denver's still alive, right? I don't think they're eliminated, so it's an extra incentive to eliminate them from the playoffs. Because I think they won last week against the Chargers.
Yeah, they did, but they're actually eliminated.
Oh, they are.
Yeah, they're eliminated. They are done see a bye. They are into the off season. Russell Wilson's gonna
Just like
leave. All that stuff.
just like us.
So right here, I got it pulled up. Let me just share my screen. Cool. So right now, Ravens and Niners are have locked up. You know, if Niners win, they starting Sam Darnold. So if Niners win, then obviously they win it. But if they lose, like let's say we give them a loss here, like to the
I think
Rams.
they already clinched because have beaten Dallas, I think, already. So they would have
Oh
tied.
yeah, they have. Okay, yeah, you're right. You're right. You're right. So it doesn't really matter. I think. Um, but obviously Dallas is going to win the division if they beat the if they're going to handle Washington. I think they're 13-point favorites. So if Dallas wins, they win the division. Eagles win, they come second. Eagles lose, they're still in the fifth seed. So they're going to beat the Giants. Um, but then right here, this is the most important game, and I think this game right here, this Bears Packers game, is going to determine Justin Fields' future. I think if Justin Fields can show that he can go to Lambeau and win, I think it's going to be different outcome. I think I'm pretty sure that Green Bay will end up, you know, go. I mean, obviously they're going to go to the playoffs, so I think Chicago will end up keeping Justin Fields if they can win that game. If they lose that game, then it's okay. Then it's like maybe get rid of him and trade up and whatever it is. But let's give that one to. I think let's give it to Green Bay. I think Green Bay is going to come out and at home and dominate.
Yeah.
So then Green Bay's at the 6th seed. The Rams would be the 7th seed, unless obviously Lions are going to win. Lions are going to beat the Vikings, even though there was a close game last time. Um, Seattle, Arizona doesn't matter. I think Seattle is basically eliminated now as it is. Um, but it looks like really if Saints win and Tampa's going to win the game. So if Saints and Tampa both win, then Tampa makes the
Yeah.
playoffs and Saints miss. So I mean, I don't know. I kind of wanted to see Carr in the playoffs. I'm not going to lie,
Yeah.
um, but it doesn't look like that's going to happen because
I th I
Carolina.
think for the division they have to win and they have to hope Tampa loses, but I think they can still make a wild card. If I think if Green Bay loses and I think if the Rams lose, why don't you plug in if Chicago beats Green Bay? See what happens.
Chicago beats Green Bay, then Seattle makes it. Okay, so Seattle's not eliminated yet.
Yeah.
It's
What
not
about
looking
if
like
if Arizona beats Seattle? What happens then?
Arizona beats Seattle.
And
Oh, okay,
then the
then
Saints are,
Carr makes it. Okay, okay, okay.
and he plays at Dallas. That'd be
At
the best of
Dallas,
his career.
yeah, he's fared well over there.
Yeah,
So
he's won there before.
yeah, he's won there before, and Thanksgiving, one of the greatest games ever.
Yeah.
But for the AFC right here, if the Steelers win, they're in. If the Ravens win, then obviously the Colts get in. But that's if the Colts win. If the Colts lose, then Houston wins the division and Jacksonville gets the 7th seed. But if Jacksonville also loses to Tennessee, which is not likely, they still make the playoffs at 9-8. But if they win, then they win the division. So I mean, we'll see right here if the Colts can beat the Texans. That's going to be on Saturday night prime time next week.
Yeah.
Um, so we'll definitely see what happens. But I think,
I got the Texans winning that game. I
yeah, I
think,
like Houston. I like Houston.
yeah.
I like Houston in that one. Obviously, it doesn't matter if we win or if Kansas City wins. It doesn't matter. Um, but yeah, it's looking so like let's just be realistic here. Let's give Seattle the win. Even though Arizona's playing hard, they just beat the Eagles.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't know. That game is a toss up. Who would you like in that one?
I would say because Seattle just lost to Pittsburgh
Yeah,
in Seattle too.
yeah. I would
They're
take
reeling at the
Arizona. I
moment.
think at Arizona at home too. I
I would
think
take Arizona.
yeah, I'm pretty sure.
Like they got the quarterback advantage. They're riding high. They just beat the Eagles. So I would say it's a pick 'em game. It's 50-50 in my book. But yeah, I want to see Carr make it. That's what I'm looking for in week 18. Because if Carr somehow manages to beat Dallas, they then go to San Francisco in the divisional round, which would be like an all-time. I would be sad as a Raider fan to watch that and see Carr in the playoffs, but I still want to see it. I want to see what happens.
Yeah, I mean, I hope Carr makes it. I mean,
Yeah.
now like I don't I was never really, huge on Carr in the last couple of years. Besides obviously 2021 and then last year he really just killed everything for me. That Steelers game when he threw that throw
Yeah.
against Renfro and threw the pick on that last drive, that was it for me. That killed it.
Yeah.
But I think yeah, I mean I like the Saints if you take the Saints over Atlanta. Atlanta's playing tough too. I think Atlanta did well last week too. Um, but I like how this is turning out right now. So we got then Ravens and Niners in the buys, and then in the AFC you got Houston would be the 7th seed going to Miami, which would be obviously a tough game. Let's just give Miami I mean Buffalo and Miami, we that's one game we didn't even talk about. So
They're playing for the division. Yeah.
what do you think about that?
I would actually give it to Buffalo. I think
Yeah,
Buffalo, they kicked their ass the first time. They beat them by 20 plus.
yeah, I agree. I think I would give it to Buffalo. I think Josh Allen's finally putting everything together, and Stephon Diggs is also putting things together. So let's give it to them in Miami. But I still think one thing is that Tua is going to keep throwing to Tyreek because Tyreek needs 248 to break the all-time receiving record. So I mean, it's kind of obvious that Miami's going to be a one-dimensional. Keep throwing to Tyreek Hill. If you lock him up, then you're looking good. If you're Buffalo, you're looking good there. And
And
they're wearing blue in Miami right now. They just announced. I just saw on
and
Instagram.
Miami's going through some off field. I don't know if you saw, but Tyreek Hill's
I
house just
know,
burned down. So I don't
crazy.
know how he's gonna perform against Buffalo.
Crazy. That is crazy. His house
Uh,
is on fire, but we got Houston then going to Buffalo, which is obviously going to be a tough game. But I like CJ Stroud a lot. I wish the Raiders pulled the trigger and traded up for him. It would have been a very different season. I think Stroud wins you some of the games that we lost this year. Then Miami at Kansas City, that's going to be a primetime game. Obviously, you don't want to see that in the wild card, but that's looking like more and more what's going to happen. Um, that's going to be a shootout. And then you got Cleveland and Joe Flacco going to Jacksonville, given that Jacksonville holds on. I think Trevor Lawrence is going to play, I believe, because if he doesn't, then they have to go to Buffalo. So I'm pretty
Hey,
sure.
one other thing, um, sorry to cut you off, but if the Browns and Bengals, if the Bengals end up winning that game, who has tiebreaker between the Dolphins and the Browns? Okay, Browns still have tiebreaker over
Yeah,
Miami.
Browns still have tiebreakers, so
So they're no matter what are going to play the 4 seed.
yeah, and Flacco's being rested, so I would give it to Cincinnati.
Yeah, it doesn't matter though
Yeah,
anyway.
I think Jake Browning is playing good. Flacco, they're just prepping him for the playoffs, which is actually smart. Um, so that's a pretty good AFC picture right there. And then in the NFC, you got the 49ers at number one, and then you got the Saints going to Dallas. If the Saints are to hold on, they choked against Atlanta when I was in Vegas in late November. They cost me a lot of friggin' money, but um, if they lose that game, then Green Bay gets in at 8 and 9.
But
That's crazy.
either way, that's going to be a primetime game. No matter who's playing Dallas, that's a primetime game.
Yeah, I agree. I mean,
Rams,
I still think it's more realistic to give Green Bay the window there.
yeah.
I think it's more realistic to say that Saints would beat the Falcons this time, but they would still miss the playoffs if Green Bay wins. Um,
Although I think that NFL wants Rams at Detroit. I think that's the matchup that the
yeah,
NFL
I think
wants.
I agree. I agree. I think that's right. So then, if the Bears somehow win, which I don't think is going to happen, um, yeah, then it would be obviously the Saints would make it, and then Rams would go to Detroit. Stafford would go back to Detroit. So let's leave it at that then. I mean, if you
Yeah.
got Saints at Cowboys, then you got Rams, you got Stafford returning to Detroit, and then you got Philadelphia at Tampa Bay, which is obviously we saw that playoff matchup either last, I think it was last or 2 years ago.
Mhm.
Um, but a few times, like we saw that a few years ago.
We
Um,
saw it when Tom Brady was still there, and it was for his rookie year, or
yeah,
sorry, second year.
second year, yeah. And I
But
think I don't know who won that game. I don't remember.
I think Tampa won that game because that was when I think that's when they went to the
Super Bowl. Yeah. You're right.
yeah
It was 21. It was 21.
yeah
So we've seen that. We've seen that before. Um, but okay, yeah. So I would take like if I'm just doing my picks, I would take Buffalo, Kansas City, Cleveland,
mhm,
and then on the NFC side, I would take Dallas. Detroit and Rams is going to be a really good game, but I got the Lions winning that one. And then Eagles at Tampa. I'm going to take obviously the Eagles. And then that would set up fifth seed versus second seed, and or fifth seed versus first seed. Yeah, so the lowest seed would play the highest seed.
yeah
So that would set up Philadelphia at San Francisco, and then Detroit at Dallas rematch is what would be set up if that
yeah
would happen. Then in the AFC, you would have, I mean, if we take Buffalo, Kansas City, and Cleveland, then it would be the same. Cleveland would go to Baltimore, and Kansas City would go to Buffalo, which would be, I think, some pretty incredible playoff games. If that was to happen.
yeah. I got everything the same as you except in the NFC. I would probably take the Rams beating Detroit. I just love Sean McVay as a head coach. I think they're probably the best coach team in the NFL. And I don't trust Dan Campbell in a big spot. I don't trust Jared Goff in a big spot. So I would give that game to the Rams, which would mean Rams would go to San Francisco, and it would be Philly at Dallas.
Oh, that would be a good game too.
Yeah,
That
two
would be that
divisional,
would be fun. That would
two
be that
divisional
would be a
matchups. Yeah,
fun way to do it. But I honestly in the AFC it sucks. There's no really good franchises. I mean, Houston, Buffalo, Miami, Kansas City, Cleveland, Jacksonville, Baltimore, just like all shit franchises in the AFC. In the NFC, at least you got like 49ers, Cowboys, Eagles, Rams, even Lions now have played really well the last couple of years. Um, but who do you like? Who do you like in the Super Bowl?
this year in the Super Bowl, I got it. I think it's San Francisco's gonna make it in the NFC, unless something happens, some injury or something. I just think by far they're the best team in the NFC. And in the AFC, I think it's Lamar's year. I think we're gonna see a rematch of last week's Balti versus 49er game. And honestly, I like the Niners this time around because One sec, sorry. Getting a call from Jay Topper, shout out. But
Jay Copper.
but I'm gonna take the Niners this year. I just think they have so many dogs on defense and on offense too. They well coached, great roster. I think I got the Niners this year.
I like it. I like it. I think I'm also I agree with that. But I think the way Baltimore just beat down San Francisco in um in San Francisco, I just don't know how that's
Yeah.
possible, to change, that outcome. As much as I hate seeing Baltimore, I mean, I actually don't. To be honest, like I don't mind Lamar Jackson winning it all. Like people hate Lamar Jackson. I actually like Lamar Jackson. I actually think Lamar Jackson is great and love the way he plays. I love the mobile quarterback style of play. And I think that's how the NFL is now. I mean, look at all these teams on the top, and almost every single one has a quarterback that can move. Aiden O'Connell is by far the slowest quarterback out of all the starters for all those teams. For all 32 teams, Aiden O'Connell definitely has the slowest speed out of anyone. I mean, even Carr can run when it matters. Like, sometimes he'll just ball up and take a sack. But we saw in 2021 what he can do when he gets out of the pocket and he can run. Like, I mean, he could run better than this guy. So I think the NFL style of play now is just mobile quarterback. You got to give it, you got to give it to the new kind of style. Michael Vick really was a guy who kind of changed the game, like back in 04, 05. Just created that mobile quarterback type that can just run wild on you. And then we've seen it the last 5 years, Mahomes and Lamar Jackson coming in, and Tua can also do it. Even Trevor Lawrence, for that matter, can get out and scramble and get you extend plays at least. Not necessarily run for 100-yard touchdown, but extend plays and open things up downfield. But I think for the Raiders now, looking at this, like this playoff picture says a lot for what's going to happen. And I think for the Raiders, you're eliminated, but you gotta get a mobile quarterback, and that's for sure. That's certain. You got to get a guy who like Lamar who can take hits. He can get hit over and over. He can get 100 times, and he can just get back up. Like it's like obviously that's not going to happen last forever. As he gets older, he's going to be more conservative because that hurts. Like getting hit that many times, it takes a toll on quarterbacks, and that's why we just don't see mobile quarterbacks lasting. And everyone always says it like, "Oh, Lamar's going to get hit once, and oh, he's going to be done. He'll never be the same." Like, but he's proven time and time again that he can get licked and he can get blown up, and he just gets back up and goes to the sideline.
Yeah. Like we saw Carr for people always praise him as like, oh, he lasted so long. He was very durable. But that shit doesn't really matter in the long run. If you're not winning games, if you have a 3, 4 year window of winning a Super Bowl, I think you take it with any quarterback. And if
Yeah,
you're gonna suck for the next 1 or 2 years, then fine. But if you have a 4 year window with any mobile quarterback, I think it's fine.
yeah,
But
I agree. I definitely agree, and I think based off like just how the NFL is and how it's just going to keep getting more mobile. I think back in like the 1940s and 50s in the early days of the NFL, I mean, running the ball was so prominent. Like teams wouldn't pass. Like in Navy is like a college that does that still. Like they don't pass the ball. They just run the ball every play. Like they'll run the ball like 80, 70, 70, like 80 times a game, and they will never pass. They'll never pass the ball. Like all season, they'll just pass the ball like 3, 4 times maybe. And it's like that kind of football is coming back. Like the run game is just so strong. And I just think the other thing is that I wanted to mention is that I think Josh Jacobs has played his last game as a Raider. To be
yeah,
honest, to be like completely frank, I think Josh Jacobs is done. I don't see him coming back next year. Injury, he got hurt now and he's dealing with the quad, and he's asking for so much money. And Zamir White has played crazy well. And Zamir White's a big guy. He's like 6'2". He's a big back, and he's a downhill runner. We've seen it. He won the Kansas City game for us on that last, he had like a 60-yard run.
yeah.
But
And I think he's got more burst than Jacobs. Like Jacobs, obviously he had a great year last year, but his legs are he doesn't have fresh legs anymore. He's been in the league for this is his fifth year now, and he's going into his sixth year.
Yeah, and the last year's Zamir White was, not used at all. And I think every time he touched the ball last year, he got hit at the line and then got pushed back. But this year we've seen it. He's been, the last couple games, he's picked good reads, and he's had good games. And I think that might just be enough to keep him around, next year and then go out and sign like a third down back. Even though Abdullah, I like Abdullah the way he plays. Like there was a couple plays where we ran draws on like 3rd and 7
Yeah.
against Kansas City, not so much against the Colts, but against Kansas City, and he got the first down. And there was one play, 3rd and 11, this past weekend, like he got like 10 yards and then it was 4th and 1. And I think we ended up bitching out and kicking the field goal, but um just really good plays, just like really good, utility guy who comes in. But then again, we could look to sign someone like that in the off season.
Yeah. It's going to be interesting what we do as a franchise. I think it's the biggest offseason we've had in the last 10 years, just because we have some momentum going forward, and it's up to the owner to really to shape our future at this stage. And I'm really interested to see where we go at head coach and where we go at offensive coordinator and quarterback. And I think we have a winner. We're building a winner, and I think we can compete for a Super Bowl next year. Like last year, I don't think me or you thought we were a Super Bowl team. We thought maybe we could sneak into the playoffs at best case scenario, which obviously we didn't. And I think next year we can take the next step. We always talk about taking the next step as an organization, but I think this is the year. And I know we've been hoping for that as fans, but I truly do think that this is the year that that happens. But anyway, Raider Nation, the Zoom is going to time out here in a second, so we appreciate the love in the last video. Our most popular video yet, surpassing 400 views. So thank you for that. And we'll catch you guys later.
See you guys.